Good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever time of day it is for you. Uh, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update. Well, not like anyone watches these, but um, in one of my last videos I let you guys know that my grandmother has cancer and is has been fighting with it for a while now. Um, Today was not really one of my best days. Um, I've I've literally just been sleeping all day, um, on and off, only getting up to use the restroom or to get something to drink or eat real quick before I went right back to bed. Uh, I had my first, uh, second smoke break, but I've literally just been feeling lifeless basically today. It I couldn't get into waking up and doing anything. I felt like I was going to fall apart for a minute there. And I was talking to her husband for a short while, and then he went into his hidey hole, and I kind of had this moment where I started to cry, and then I was like, no, okay, enough's enough. Um, it's just like I'm stepping away from that. And so trying to wake myself up and get out of a mood, I blasted music in my ears despite my headache, um, and started sweeping and mopping the floors, got what dishes were in the sink out of the way. Of course, dirtied them right away because I was hungry and I was cleaning while I was cooking. So kind of redundant when you're cleaning dishes and dirtying them at the exact same time. But hey, to each their own. Um, and found a song that I had been looking for a while, and I first heard it on TikTok, and it sounded familiar, but for some reason I just couldn't get the name or who was singing it. It wouldn't come to my mind at all. So I ended up having to look it up. And of course it was Dynasty. Um, One of my favorite songs, as well as Middle of the Night, which is by a different artist. Um, Both are my absolute favorites. Um, and I am a terrible singer. At least that's what everyone has always told me. Not that I care at all, it's just something I like to do for fun. So I'm belting out because no one's in the apartment and I can do what I want in the middle of the day. I finished and I went to sit outside and just kind of spacing out and recalling these stories that I have started reading over the past couple of days. And some of them I had started reading before but stopped, and others were, you'll have to excuse my English because it's terrible right now. Others were pissing me off so bad that I just could not stand reading them anymore. And at the bottom of one of the pages on kunmanga.com, at the bottom of each chapter, they list other stories that you might like. Well, this one popped up and it's called Carrier Falcon Princess. Or Cavier. I think I may be pronouncing that wrong, but when you read it on the actual manga itself, it says carrier instead of cav- ca- caviar, caviar, however you want to fucking say that. Anyway, um, Carrier Falcon Princess. I'm used to um, fantasy romance stories that actually have magic or certain creatures that can use magic and witches and stuff like that. This one happens to be a tad bit different. Um, the story focuses on, I believe she's the eighth princess of her kingdom. They were blessed with I'm not entirely sure. The story starts out with um, a person who lived long ago had golden blood, and she her blood gave life to everything on the planet. And she died and filled the lake with her blood, which now has these like gold flakes in it. Well, the eighth princess seems to have remnants of gold blood in her. And during the war, she's basically a sacrifice, so that her first and second sister can live. Basically, a distraction so that they don't pay attention to that. As she's getting attacked, she kind of blacks out, trying to force herself to move, and realizes that she has become a falcon. I can kind of see where this story is going already when I was reading it. Uh, when I started reading it, I am now on chapter 11, and I absolutely adore it. Um, Perfect amount of comedy and information. It's not too much information in one go. It kind of breaks it up in certain bits and pieces. Um, and of course, like all royal families, they're asses. So she's basically lived in hiding her entire life, not really knowing who's who. Um, her second sister's fiance is who she manages. I think it's her second sister. Yeah. Her second sister's fiance is who she ends up getting tangled with. She ends up running into him, uh, and she didn't know it was him at first. Um, and of course, had she had known, she would have just fled right away. She wouldn't have gone anywhere near him. But the problem was that her first and second sister have both tried to kill her. So she ends up avoiding them like the plague, including their fiancés and in laws. So anytime she heard that her sister, one of her sisters, or both of her sisters would be appearing at a banquet or a party or whatever, she would immediately flee. Her senses were just like, no, danger, run. And she would avoid them like the plague, literally. Um, her I'm kind of wondering how she's going to turn back into a human being and if she can control it, between Falcon and human. But right now, I'm actually really enjoying her being a Falcon. I gotta tell you, I did not think I would like this as much as I do. It's it's hilarious, just hilarious. One of my favorite parts is where her second sister's fiance is like, "Am I crazy for talking to a bird?" just just having one of those oh my god moments because she can understand him and he's just like he thinks he's losing his damn mind and they think that the bird is crazy, all this crap. It's hilarious. Um and of course you've got these little serious moments. She's literally acting as a carrier falcon, delivering messages back and forth between camps. Um, he's strangely finding himself attached to this falcon, as it is one of the only falcons that are still one of the only messenger falcons that are still alive. Um, of course, she wasn't originally one of them to begin with, but he's exclusively using her. The rest of the army cannot use her, just him. Mainly because he's the only one that believes that she understands him. And she will only relay information to him. She has tried showing the others, but they just called her crazy. So she tried to show him. And at first he brushed it off as crazy, but the more he started thinking about it, the more he was just like, oh. And so he started paying more attention to her. Now he's exclusively using her for any information back and forth from their camps. Uh, that is about all the information I can give right now. As far as I know, there are not any mages or witches or anything like that in this story so far. Even if there were, I'm really liking the way that this one is carrying itself out. There was another story that I was reading not too long ago that just pissed me off. Um, what was the name of it? Everything was a mistake. Um, that one is about basically this person's reincarnated into a new life. Um, she falls in love with the villain without realizing that she's fallen in love with the villain. And when it first started, she thought he was the male lead because the male lead on the cover of the story had black hair. Later, you find out that that wasn't the case. Um, the story itself, the plot is not terrible. it's the conversations. And I understand that translators do the best they can. The thing that pisses me off is when they don't speak English. Um, the translators, God bless them, because they do the best that they can. The problem is that when you are reading it with a dyslexic brain and an attention span of a squirrel, trying to read a sentence that is not grammatically correct just pisses my brain off because it tries to organize it as best it can. Not only that, it's like they switch translators about a few chapters in and the names switch. The names are all fucking different. And it's just like, who is who? Because now I'm confused. Um, Also, some fine details end up changing as well, which really ticks me off. It's just, I really wish these stories. Matter of fact, I really wish I could read Chinese and Japanese because I would translate my fucking self, but I can't, and it drives me nuts. It, I love the story. I love where the story's going. The only thing that is really ticking me off is that I'm like 40 something chapters in and they're both just kind of realizing their feelings for each other, which really ticks me off. And the villain is oddly obsessed with our main character, so he's going about everything the wrong way, which is very understandable considering where he's coming from. And from someone who has read the story, she seems to not understand anything at all. So she herself is extremely frustrating to just deal with. Um, the female lead of the original story is also kind of irritating in her own way, and so is the male lead, the actual male lead. Um, the only one that seemed to make any sense whatsoever was the villain. And to me, he's not a villain. The villain is his mother and his father and his brothers. They're the villains. Why is it that in these stories these villains are called villains when they're not actually villains? Like it just it blows my mind. One of the stories is I'm the daughter of a wicked woman. I believe I've talked about this one before, but mainly her mother was trying to protect her husband and from the girl that he was having an affair with, who was just using him for his power. She tries to protect him in any way possible to keep them apart. And it's not just because she's obsessed, she wants to protect her love and his family. He ends up locking her away without ever hearing what she was trying to say, that she was pregnant. And so she's locked up in a spire, which is a tall tower with only one way in and out, aside from windows, which are usually barred. Um, and she has her child there. The child gets sent to an orphanage after her mother dies. Or, yeah, before her mother dies. Is sent to an orphanage and then is brought back to say goodbye to her mother, where her dad comes just to see that she's dead, um, and does not approve of the child at all. So, of course, it's only natural that she's going to want to get her revenge. That's fucking normal. That's understandable. I don't see her mother as wicked or evil or villainous at all. I have read three, yeah, three stories where the woman is just trying to protect her husband, and she's basically told that she's a villainess. Um, one of them, one of the other ones that I read was a woman who didn't think like everyone else. Um, in her time period, men are always in power, women just look pretty, basically. Manage the household and look pretty. That is all they're good for. Uh, well, our main character doesn't think so. So she sets off to try to do things on her own to survive. She is, of course, called a villainess, which makes no sense at all. I understand that they had time periods like that, but I can't wrap my head around that because men are stupid. Correction. Most men that I have met are stupid. I understand making mistakes and stuff like that. That I get. I understand that. Um, what I don't understand is how they thought that they were in power. Um, it just amazes me. They're literally stuck behind a desk filing paperwork while their wives are building connections. And then, because of the connections that the wives have with each other, their husbands get sent invitations to basically banquets and parties and gatherings and stuff like that, to where they can then do their business deals. How did no one ever, how did no one notice that? All the research that I have done, although most of it is not entirely accurate because it was a long time ago, a lot of information has kind of been skewed. But out of all the information that I was reading, it was mainly men who just sat there and looked pretty. The females were working their asses off, stuffing themselves in corsets and panners, um, drowning their faces in makeup, basically destroying their health, ruining their bodies, literally killing themselves to get these connections in high society so that they could get invitations to banquets and parties and stuff like that so that their husbands could then make deals. And if the wife didn't like someone, she basically blacklisted them and would never mention them to her husband. And not only that, it's surprising that the birth rate was so low. Not really surprising, at least not to me. I've been stuffed in a corset before. Uh, did not like it at all. Um, my mom was just like, I don't understand how these women are dying giving birth all the time in these old movies and stuff like that. I'm like, seriously, you don't understand that? I was like, Mama, they're deforming their organs to look pretty so that they can get married, basically killing themselves just so they can have a kid. And more than half the time, both the mother and the child would die. Not only that, the miscarriage rates were excruciatingly high for that time period because corsets squish the living crap out of your guts and just shove everything closer together to get this hourglass figure that everyone swears is the perfect body shape. Sorry, it is not. It is death. So I was just like, how do you not understand this? Because it is picture perfect clear to me as to all of it. It makes perfect sense to me. I have only been stuffed in a corset twice in my life. Once was done by a professional. The second time was done by a friend, and both times I hated it. Once I did myself, and it wasn't even to squish my body together. It was just because it looked cool with my outfit, and it was very loose. It wasn't meant to be too tight. It was just there for a fashion statement. Um, I kind of had this like rich girl theme going on that I was obsessed with a corset and jeans and high heels or boots. Um, don't bother doing it now. There's no point. But the first time, which was done by a professional, was painful. The only time women got any kind of relief was when they went to bed. That was the only time they didn't have to wear the panner. It was the only time that they didn't have to wear the corset. It started out of style, uh, panners and corsets. When that was going out of style and was no longer what they wore, the birth rates were higher. Disease, on the other hand, was running rampant. There were just a lot of kinks to work out with things back then. And I've seen so many of these stories end up that way, um, with disease or the corsets and panners. And of course, you have your modern woman who transmigrates or isekais into that world or reincarnates into that world and is just like, yeah, no, and does her own thing. The one thing that is still eluding me is if nobles were really that damn stupid back then. Because every time I read these, it's like, are the nobles really that stupid and just greedy for money? Like, what? I don't understand. One has their biological daughter who has a gift, and they abuse the living crap out of her, both mother and father. And then marry her off, and when her ability actually manifests, they try to buy her back from who they married her off to, or try to weasel their way back into her life. And it's just like, no. How does that make any sense? I understand they were obsessed with power, but if you weren't such an idiotic, neglectful, abusive parent, you wouldn't have had that issue. Why can't they just love their children? Is it that difficult? There was only one in particular that I kind of understood, and that was a woman who was jealous of her own daughter because she was younger and more full of life and prettier. Basically, a more perfect being than her mother. And the mother was jealous. That I can understand somewhat. My little girl was so pretty. And after we were able to take her home, I refused to hold her for a while because looking at her perfect face just pissed me off. I eventually got over it, but I was just like, I never thought I would feel this way. It was my choice to have her, it was my choice to keep her. It just never occurred to me that I would actually ever feel that way. Now, I didn't go about neglecting her or abusing her, but the jealousy was there. It was weird feeling. Anyway, I gotta go ahead and get out of here. It's getting late. It is about 9:30 now. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here. But I just wanted to update you guys that she's still hanging in there. They give her till about the end of the month. They told us what to watch out for. They've upped her pain meds. We'll see how it goes. My mother will be gone for basically another month. She came back for one whole day and had to leave again. So, yeah. Well, I hope you guys are doing okay, and I hope you guys are keeping track of the weather. If you're not sure, if you don't have a TV and you don't watch the news on there or through the radio, um, There is a YouTube guy who comes on every now and then who does updates, who does weather, and occasionally does footage of tornadoes. I'm going to see how he does on hurricane season. I'm not too sure if he's very knowledgeable in that sort of situation, but I'm going to find out. His name is Ryan Hall Y'all. You can find him on YouTube. You can also find him on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. He has a Reddit or subreddit, one or the other. And just, he's amazing. He has storm chasers with him. He occasionally does storm chasing himself. He's on top of tornadoes, severe weathers. Um, and he does your weekly weather. Um, he usually posts every day, but because of the recent tornado outbreak, he has been doing disaster relief for people who have been affected. Um, he also has a merch store, and all of the money from his merch goes straight to disaster relief and helping the storm chasers refuel, get food, supplies that they may need for emergencies and stuff like that. Check him out. And I will see you guys later. I hope you have a beautiful morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever time of the day it is for you. And I will update you as soon as I can. Bye.